Hi everyone. Today you're going to watch me do my makeup while I rant about my favorite game. Genshin Impact is a trailblazer in its niche, as it's the only MMORPG gacha game that also manages to encompass like as big of an audience as it does, as well as being open world. And it's very fun, and it appeals especially to somebody like me who's always loved the combat of Breath of the Wild and the team building and progression of Pokemon. So I've always played it basically since launch. However, people are really mad at MiHoYo, and there has been outrage directed at MiHoYo basically for a very long time. You hear that? Some of the outrage is blown out of proportion, but a lot of it, in my opinion, is incredibly valid and incredibly deserved. And the problem is that there's no accountability and there's no communication with the player base. I could go into detail with all of the problems that we've had with Genshin, but in order to not make a really long video, we're just going to talk about the Imiko controversy. So in the latest update, 2.6 just came out, and I've been playing. I really enjoyed it. Ayato just released. It's a great patch, but we just eclipsed 2.5, which was Imiko's patch. Imiko was highly anticipated. She is the shrine priestess of the Grand Narukami Shrine. She means a lot to the nation of Inazuma, and most importantly, she is a waifu. Like, I love her. I managed to pull her really easily on both of my accounts, and I play her. I essentially made her, and she is the only character in the history of Genshin Impact to be nerfed. What? That can't be right. These kinds of games nerf characters all the time. That's where you're wrong. See, Genshin is unique because it's a gacha game. It's a game that encourages gambling for young children, and specifically it targets a whale demographic that can drop a lot of money on the game, and they know what they're signing up for, but they expect their rewards. So the things that they release in Genshin have monetary value. Some people will spend up to like $1,000 to get their character as perfect as they want because they know the character's worth is protected. What do you mean protected? Well, I believe this law is only actually in Japan, but most RPGs or like gacha games that I historically played originated in Japan, so it's always been a precedent in these games that characters do not get nerfed. Characters do get buffed sometimes, but they are never nerfed because that is not legal. I am not saying that MiHoYo broke any laws because they're based in China, and as far as I'm concerned, that's not a law in China. However, the law in Japan basically states that you cannot sell someone a product and then change it later, right? And they recognize these characters in these video games as products that have monetary value. So this title is a bit of clickbait, but it's actually completely real because the rule that Genshin Impact broke today, they've been planning it for a while. People have been outraged and trying to get them to stop, but whatever. But the rule that they broke is they nerfed Imiko. I'm going to be honest. At first, I thought this outrage was misappropriated. Like, I thought the energy was misplaced. I thought the patch overall was successful, blah, blah, blah. However, my problem with it is the senselessness of it and the fact that it is worse than I thought, and it is genuinely, it's false advertising. It's selling a faulty product, and I think it needs to be called out. Despite the fact that, honestly, I'm not going to lie, this is my favorite game, at least at the current. And I'm a gamer, so that means a lot. So calling out my favorite game sucks for me, but like, someone has to, because nobody on my channel even really cares that much about Genshin. No offense, besties, but I can tell. Like, not a lot of you play. It's okay. It's a niche interest that I have, and some people have. Everyone I know who plays Genshin does not understand this one bit. Why did they nerf? Why did they nerf? Why would they nerf a character to begin with? Well, when Yae was released, there was a lot of controversy. Genshin has a history of people having controversy with releases, so this is nothing new. And to be honest, I thought this would blow over. However, amidst the controversy, they announced after the fact that they were going to change her. And everybody was really excited. However, we quickly found out what the change was, and everyone's like, wait, go back. Because it is not a buff. And it's rather perplexing because the nerf, in every sense of the word, I and many people online have tried to theory craft situations where this change they made to this character is beneficial. And I cannot come up with. And I do think that that's a sign that there aren't many. So I'll break it down for you. If you don't play the game, you don't need to understand the lingo. But basically, Imiko is a character that summons turrets. She has 3 she can have at any given time. And they have a pretty substantial range. Some people paid extra hundreds of dollars in order to make the turrets have extra range. That's a big factor here. Remember this. In Genshin, the more copies you get of a servant, the stronger they get. Well, one of the reasons why it's important to not change a servant after release is because if people buy, let's say, $1,000 worth of currency for this game and get a perfect version of their character, well, they have a high investment in that character remaining the way they were when they bought them. However, let's say you wailed for Imiko, and you wailed to get her second constellation, which makes all of her turrets do slightly more damage and have longer range. I almost wanted to go for this because it seemed pretty cool. Well, it doesn't work anymore. What do you mean, Lyra? How can it not work? Well, now the turrets always attack the closest target. Always. And there are a lot of problems with that. But most notably, there are logistical game issues, like the turrets now will prioritize attacking certain objects or gadgets over enemies. And if you have 3 turrets out, they'll all attack the same little guy at the same time instead of spreading out their damage randomly like they used to. Yai, as a character, has basically no advantage over most other characters, despite doing just a lot of damage. But the problem is that it's not that easy to focus damage in Genshin the way it needs to be focused. However, Yai had a specific advantage where you could count on her turrets to deal with the rabble, while Yai focused on dealing damage to the main guy. Well, this has also been nerfed as a result of this, because there are a lot of enemies in the game that are immune to Electro, and as an Electro catalyst, you need to be able to know that you're not going to put all your eggs in one basket. Well, if a shielded enemy is standing close to any of Yai's sentries damage will essentially be rendered pointless now. It won't work because they'll all target the same guy, and they can't do anything to his shield, so it won't do any damage, and essentially your damage is reduced to 0 until you replace your totems. And there's a straw man being made here that's like, no, now you just have to be more strategic with Yai. You just have to more strategically place your totems. But people don't understand that that isn't an excuse, because field time in Genshin is a serious thing. Like, Yai as it is already not that much better than some other units that are 4-star in her niche. And one of her downsides is that she takes a lot of field time, and that's field time that you could be using on another character to do more damage. And in a game like Genshin, you can be like, well, why do you care so much about doing damage? The only end game is timed boss content. And it's timed as in you have to clear it within a certain amount of time. So if it's timed and it's constantly getting harder, like I used to say, well, no, I actually don't care if it keeps getting harder, because I personally like doing it. And I still do like doing it because I don't have trouble clearing these things. But the problem is that I have really good teams and not everybody does. And if you now do not know that your character won't get just randomly changed by MiHoYo without announcing it, because by the way, I haven't said the worst part. This has never happened in the history of Genshin or another gacha game to happen after a servant or after a character is released. You know, some of these changes happen very frequently, but it's in the beta, before people have bought the product, before it's been officially announced in any capacity, right? And again, I wouldn't be saying any of this mattered if not for the fact that this is a game that makes billions of dollars off of this exact practice. And the marketing is predatory in these games. They're very flashy. They target kids. Kids like to make big shiny numbers happen, you know? And it's especially bad if you are not paying and you are a free-to-play player in Genshin and you've been saving up your Primogems, because games like this, gacha games, have always existed, and a large majority of the player base historically doesn't pay, because it's just not everybody wants to spend money on a free game. And the game is kept afloat by the people who pay a lot. Well, you still need a player base of people who play for free. The problem is in Genshin, it can be kind of hard for those people to get the characters they want. So the characters they do save up for and spend their Prima Gems on are usually characters they've been saving up for a long time. They've had a lot of expectations for, and they essentially, they're all in on that, because if they can't get other characters in the meantime, you know, their success in the game hinges on whether or not the character that they saved up for is good. And so what if this becomes a precedent in Genshin? Because so far we haven't heard anything from them about this other than like automated customer response. They know that people didn't want this change. There's no reason for it. There just was no reason for it. I do not know I can fathom like a situation where it helps. And it's like, why? I honestly don't know. It's especially jarring because this character is not particularly strong. And I can say this as somebody who's put a lot of time into her, and she is very good in my opinion. But the thing is that this game has a lot of good characters. So they've been historically releasing a lot of characters in Inazuma, people are suspecting, before they're done. Like, Yoimiya was definitely released before she was done. I believe that Yai was as well too. I believe that there are kinks in their kit that could have been ironed out but weren't. Yai is a character that spends so much time on the field, but she is so squishy. And she has 3 dashes that are meant to like keep you moving, but they have no invincibility on them. And it feels like you're basically a walking target whenever you use Yai to begin with. So now the changes they've made to her have essentially just made it so that you have to be more careful, more meticulous to do less damage. And every scenario, you can argue all you want. Every scenario, every Yai player I've talked to agrees with me, and I'm willing to go down with this if this is a bad take. I believe that MiHoYo did not intentionally misrepresent, but I believe that they are misrepresenting this product. And they're only getting away with it because there really is no police for this sort of thing. You know, these companies, all gacha games are predatory by nature. So people are probably seeing me make this video and they're just like, okay, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? But I'm also just speaking on behalf of like, somebody has to talk about this. When the anniversary came around and I noticed that MiHoYo was treating their player base really badly, I tried to speak about it too. But the truth is that I think that MiHoYo is one of those companies that's having a problem of being very out of touch. And they do not know what their players want, but they keep giving them what they think they need, when in reality, like, a lot of people made a bunch of memes like, MiHoYo is choosing between doing nothing and nerfing Yai, and they choose to nerf Yai. And it's completely random, it's completely unproductive, it comes amidst... Oh, I haven't said the worst part, have I? When the first time this really happened, when people were outraged about a character, was when Zhongli, the Geo Archon, who represents Liyue, the Chinese nation in Genshin, and people accused them of hating China. So you know they took that very seriously. And Zhongli, he wasn't even nerfed. They weren't outraged of him being nerfed. He was just not that good. And they just made him really good. Now he's like the best unit in the game. I'm not even kidding. And they don't care about Yai. People were outraged that Yai was bad, so they nerfed her. And this is the only time that's ever happened. And some people had been saving for Yai since the start of the game. And it, to me, feels like a slap in the face. Because there's no precedent of this. There's no announcement of this. It would be one thing if they made these changes before releasing the character and before people bought it. But now it was just false advertisement and you can't get a refund. None of these people can get a refund. And a lot of people I know personally are quitting the game over it because it's just stupid. It's needless cruelty to players that like have lined this company's pockets. I think the saddest part about all of this is that Yai is probably my favorite character to use currently in Genshin, and I am not actually that affected, because the truth is that I am like the top 1% of Genshin. I've been playing since the beginning. I don't struggle to clear anything. If my character is worse, I can make do. The problem is Genshin is in a state now where every patch it gets harder, and a lot of players are like barely treading water, and they're trying to catch up to the meta. And if it's just subject to change, That's not good. This game has been breaking barriers and managing to stay relevant, and I want it to, but this is a really, really bad move for the health of your player base. And 100 Primogems in the mail isn't going to cut it, Paimon. Like, that's what they try to do. They do try to smooth shit like this over by acting like it's not a big deal when I believe it really is. Or at least I believe we should be treating it like it is, because I know that, like, the company's incentive is to act like nothing's happening, but, like, we don't have any power. Like, I'm still gonna keep using Yai, but why? And some people are gonna come at me in this video and say the nerf really isn't all that bad. However way you look at it, it was completely unnecessary. A completely unnecessary change. Not even nerf. Let's just not even call it a nerf, because some people won't acknowledge it as a nerf. It was a completely unasked for, completely unnecessary change. They do not nerf, or they do not balance the characters in this game. They should. They are very, very infrequently making changes. There are still some characters that to this day in Genshin are functionally unable to function. Like Albedo in some boss fights just doesn't work. His move, his big meme move that like his entire kit is designed around, yeah, it just doesn't work. And people have complained about it since day one, and it hasn't been fixed. But all of a sudden they're making changes. Now they're making a hotfix to a character that nobody wanted, and it's to make the character worse. So I'm pretty upset, but like, I'm an adult, you know? And there are plenty of adults who are upset. I'm not saying you're not an adult if you're upset, but like, to me, it's just, what can you do? This is what I'm doing. This is all I can be doing, because I want to try to, I actually really, really like this game, and I think it has so much potential. But I think most games are ruined by corporate like decisions that are made without like a knowledge or understanding of the game. Like, and sometimes I feel like decisions like this are made without understanding the implications they have, you know? I don't think CEOs got together and were like, let's piss off everybody who plays the Imiko, the fox. And by the way, she isn't just Imiko. Like, Imiko is essentially this game's kitsune. She's this game's nine-tailed fox. That character is in basically every anime and means a lot to a lot of people. And it means a lot to me. And she's beautifully designed. She's beautifully voice acted. She has some of the best animations in the game. But now, nobody's talking about that. And it's sad, because Genshin's community is toxic, and I suppose I'm part of the problem. But you know what? When there's smoke, there's fire, miHoYo. If you're worried your community's toxic, is it possible that the way your company behaves has something to do with it? Because you can't just do these things without warning. It would be one thing if they had been nerfing characters like this since the beginning of the game. I actually would welcome it, because I think that some characters like Bennett are just over-centralizingly good. You know, and every time a new character comes out, people are like, but he's not as good as Bennett. Why would you run him over Bennett? But it's like, Bennett is the best character in the game. So that's dumb. And it seems they're actively trying to avoid power creep, but the problem is that they weren't before. So the new units they used to come out with, like Ganyu, Hu Tao, Zhao, they would set the DPS standard. And so people would then have expectations set for the impending releases, like, okay, they're going to be on a similar power level. But they haven't been. Now, Ayato is having a promising release, and a lot of people are happy about that. But it's kind of a spit in the face to Yai mains, because we just dumped our load on her, and we were actually all pretty happy with her. There were some complaints, but like, she had a niche, and one of those niches I didn't even mention. So there are going to be people who actually play Genshin that are going to be like, you didn't even explain how this nerf is bad in depth. So I'm going to let the math of other people talk soon, but it also nerfs her just Electro spreading capability. She used to be the best Electro spreader in the game. You know, applying elemental reactions is really strong, no matter how you look at it. And she was really good at depleting Electro shields of multiple enemies, or Hydro shields, because there's a cooldown of elemental application in this game. So if you're attacking the same person over and over, which is what the turrets do now, you have to wait for the cooldown before you can reapply the element. However, that cooldown isn't shared among enemies. So if you're jumping between targets, each hit will apply Electro. So this change should have came with a removal of her internal cooldown at least to avoid it being a direct nerf. But no. And again, if you play regular games, you can say all you want. Lyra, characters get nerfed all the time. Well, that has never been a precedent in gacha games. And maybe that's my bias because I've always played Japanese ran gacha games, and that is a law that is respected there. I have never seen in any of these gacha games, I've never seen a servant get nerfed. I've seen servants get indirectly nerfed by having other servants eclipse them. You know, power creep is real. But this game now has power creep and has had its first taste of the nerf back. And that's normally for PvP games. This is a PvE game. And most people would agree with me that nerfing is only really necessary in a PvP game. Like, I don't care that there are some people who have Ganyu that can do damage that I will never reach to Dvalin, you know? And in turn, they shouldn't care that my Hu Tao will have like the best single target damage in the game. However, they seem to actively be trying to avoid power creeping, which is a good sign. But it's odd that that comes and then they would nerf a character that was already low performing. Because, like, Yai does good damage, but the problem is that besides doing good damage and good Electro application, that was really it. She didn't make a lot of energy, and she took up a lot of field time. And she was kind of awkward to use because she's a Catalyst user. So the only thing she had going for her really was, because there's a lot of characters that do a lot of damage. So the only thing that was, like, unique to her was her ability to spread her Electro application. And now they have effectively neutered that. They have. Now her Electro application is less effective than Fischl, because at Fischl C6 you can get way more Electro application. And that's another thing too. I keep going in on this, but now her second constellation, the estimated worth of a 5-star unit is about $100 in this game, if you just try to buy it with luck. Because you can, one thing I do like about Genshin is you can force a pity. Not all games have that. Like, that's not a required law. Like, these games are predatory by nature. That's not a required law in Japan. So many of these games steal thousands of dollars from people without ever giving them anything in return. And I do think it's a problem. But, and that's one thing I've always praised Genshin for. But now they are breaching protocol of a gacha, in my opinion. I believe that this is a breach of protocol. I don't know about you, but this better be the last time they do this. Well, I don't know if that'll make Yai happier or more upset. And don't get me wrong, like, this video could age poorly. They could have like a plan in store for Yai, but they have never, ever, since the Zhongli fiasco. I called it. After the Zhongli fiasco, I was like, this is the last time they're ever going to do this. Because Zhongli was overbuffed. Zhongli was made so good. And I don't have a problem with units being good. What I do have a problem with is units being bad and having nothing to be done about it. You know? Or units having functionally broken parts of their kit and having nothing done about it. I want to know down below if any of you care. Am I barking up the wrong tree, or is this something worth caring about? Because we live in a world where injustice is far worse than this happen every day, right? But what can I do about any of this at all, you know? I've made content about a few things, and Genshin is one of them, and I know I have some fans of Genshin, so if you have Yai or if you have thoughts about Yai, I would love to hear your thoughts, because to be honest, I'm really, really disappointed in MiHoYo. Either way, there's been no, like, accountability. If they had announced this, if there had been some kind of communication with the players, you know, a lot of people sent in surveys, especially I did. I sent in 3 surveys because I have 3 accounts, because that's how stupid I am. And all of them, I was very honest about how I felt about the Yai change and how I felt about Yai. And I just really hope, I don't know, something tells me maybe they'll have something up their sleeve, because they have made a change before, but it was only that one time with Zhongli. And I'm not expecting them to buff her, but, like, can we not nerf her? I don't think that's too much to ask people. Let me know in the comments down below. Am I being too much? Is that too much to ask? It's okay if it is. Sometimes it's important to complain, even if the complaint doesn't seem necessary. Imiko. Anime hair is not really something you can imitate, girls. Not without a wig. If you want to send me a wig, that would be great. I'd love to do Genshin cosplays, but oh my goodness. You know, every time I start feeling good about Genshin, the company just starts acting a fool again. Before we wrap up this essay, as it were, we're going to see what some other people have said. Not just me, but other opinions in the Genshin community about this travesty. As other posts previously stated, the 2.6 Yai fix ended up being a direct nerf to her. As an owner of Constellation 2, I now don't see the purpose of having Constellations upgrade her range, apart from having a slightly increase of damage. The fact that as a C2 haver, now I don't see the purpose of having the Constellations on her at all, apart from having a slight increase of damage. The fact is that the company changed without even officially announcing it, a product that they previously sold which had a different utility and mechanic from the one now we unfortunately have. Hoyoverse has acted fraudulently, providing a product and modifying it, and worse, after many of us even spent money on Yai's banner because of her characteristics. So please, if you're in the same situation and find this fix a disappointment, let the company know the issue through sending feedbacks and expressing your opinion on Hoyoverse main channels. Make Hoyoverse hear our voice. You have my support. Child main here, but I have Imiko because she was pretty. Holy crap, where's the refund button? I have her C0 rank 1 and she hit the shielded Minotaur the entire battle. Hoyoverse, why? What is this shit? Yeah, so if it seems like the situation I described to you earlier was like too specific to happen, it's not. Shielded enemies in Genshin are really common, and shields are notoriously hard for Catalyst users to deal with. Well, that wouldn't ordinarily be a problem for Yai, because one of her strengths used to be the spreading damage she did. You know what I mean? But now, if the Minotaur gets in with his shield, your Yai has stopped doing damage with any of her turrets, which is a large portion of her damage. And that's just not okay, in my opinion. Especially, there's no reason for it. There was no acknowledgments of this issue from Hoyoverse from before, so now they call it a fix. Feels super scummy, like they want to avoid lawsuits. Apparently, players are reporting them to be are reporting them. And to be honest, if you do stuff like this, you have to be ready to break the consequences. Like, I'm not acknowledging that, like, they don't have the right to change their game, but, like, we have the right to be upset, don't we? I fully support this. I'm a C2 rank 1 haver as well, and this change is just an unjustified nerf to a character who, though I think she was fine as she was, definitely wasn't OP. Among all the complaints, I didn't see anyone demand her skill to prioritize the closest enemy, which makes me wonder where the fuck did they get this idea from? I'm on my way to send complaint in the feedback section, and I'll keep spamming in the future surveys until hopefully this bullshit change gets reversed. Example of what happened to me just now. A Sawmaturl fell to the side of the cliff. Normally her totems would still hit it because it's close enough, but they didn't. They kept solely attacking the bonfire instead. I got closer to the edge and placed them again. Nope, still hitting the bonfire. I had to jump down directly in front of the enemy for them to hit, which at that point makes the totems useless anyway. Same thing happened earlier with a Hilichurl on the tower. I placed them in front at the center, but they refused to hit. I had to run back again and put them directly underneath the tower with zero spacing, a waste of time and DPS. This was never an issue before. Another instance earlier, I saw some enemies and placed the totems, but they did nothing, whereas before they would initiate the fight from that close of a range. It absolutely is a nerf, and it hurts a lot. Yai isn't as good as she used to be. Yeah, and that's true. I even have noticed, when I used to go around in the overworld as Yai, if you left a turret behind, I would leave Albedo's elevator and Yai's turret behind, and it would just clear out a pack of enemies. But something is wrong with these turrets now, and they said it's a fix. I'm not buying it. It doesn't feel like a fix. This video should hopefully help illustrate it. Yai getting nerfed is unacceptable, especially for those of us who have the misfortune of owning C2. If you don't know what C2 means, at this point, basically, these people just understand they paid an extra $200, $300, $400 possibly for extra range on the totems. Now, after the banner's gone, after the fact, it's been changed, and that isn't a functional change anymore. So what they paid for is not what they thought they were getting. For those of you who don't know, Yai's targeting on her totems is getting changed to randomly target the closest enemy. This makes her Electro application far worse and makes the extended range on her C2 constellation irrelevant. I can't believe I spent so many damn wishes getting her C2 only for MiHoYo to nerf the character already on my account that I already bought. It's absurd false advertising to bait players to spend their money on one thing only to snatch it away as a fix. I wasted tens of thousands of primos to get a character to C2 who isn't at all worth the hype she wrote in on, and is now being nerfed to be even worse. Every single person who has the misfortune of owning Yai deserves 20k primo compensation. I easily spent twice that getting her to C2, and they still need to fix her clunky E skill. You can't change my mind. MiHoYo, shame on you. And us players need to make as much noise about this as necessary for them to do something. I hate posts with this kind of energy because it feeds into the narrative that Genshin community is toxic, but I actually completely agree with this person, because at some point enough is enough, right? Like, I don't understand what Genshin is trying to do. As a C6 owner, C6, by the way, average cost is about $1,000. I'm disappointed. My strat usually involves dropping the totems to clear the small fry while I focus my main DPS on key targets. When I notice the bolts consistently hitting what I'm hitting, I'm usually sure everything else is cleared out. That was oddly satisfying. I'll test it out now, but given the wording, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen anymore. Just test it on commissions. If the closest character is shielded, no damage for you. Yep. And I'm not going to lie, I think that shields in Genshin are probably the worst part of the combat. It is incredibly uninteractive and just boring, and most of them are just rock, paper, scissors. And for them to just directly nerf a character's ability to deal with shields, or change, rather, right? It's a change, it's a fix. That's a huge deal. This is a huge slap in the face. It stings even more knowing I willingly spent $200 or more to get her C2, since I liked the fact that she could kill or shred enemies in the background. Now that's gone, and I see no point in having her have more range now as well. What makes it worse is the totems can focus a shielded character literally the entire time. I spent $400 to get Yai C2. If they don't fix this, I'm selling my account and I'm done. This is ridiculous. She feels unplayable now. This seems a little excessive, but I am never going to shame someone for their feelings. If you look at this gameplay, there are problems. These are objectively problems. Some people think it's an unnecessary drama. Just want to let everyone know that there are people who spend money on Miko's constellations and be able to use the benefits from those constellations for a short amount of time, and imagine the change they have made to her defeats the purpose of having those constellations in the first place, which they do. Only, in my opinion, only one of them really is affected, and that's Constellation 2, but that's a big deal because that was a really cool aspect of her kit that they completely changed. It feels like some parts you own has been taken back without any reimbursement. It's a bad marketing practice, almost borderline scamming. If the case they do refuse to do chargeback, if I say so, this is a gotcha game, and they have no reason to take that away what we have won from the draw. I won't buy the excuses of, oh, we're sorry, you're supposed to get this and not that. If so, then you better off not letting me win the character then. If they continue with this behavior, they will face some bad consequences. So, if this video seems like it's adding on to the flames of toxicity, that wasn't my intention, and I'm going to do everything in my power to be as balanced about this and rational about the issue as I can. I'm still going to enjoy Genshin as I play. I have enjoyed the Chasm, I've enjoyed 2.6, I have enjoyed Inazuma, I have enjoyed it. It's not a perfect game, but I don't need perfection. That being said, I have no idea why they are so hell-bent on torpedoing their reputation. MiHoYo is incapable of making a smart move, I feel like. And I'm sorry. If you want me to handle your takes or your social media, because this could have been handled with actual damage control, but none of these companies can do damage control because nobody can ever admit fault. When there's a scandal, the company is just silent while everybody freaks out, and everybody way overreacts because there's no reaction, so they try to keep reacting to try to get a reaction. At this point, the reason why people are being so toxic about Yai isn't because they're frothing at the mouth, it's because they know no other way is going to get a response. So that's why I'm making this video, and if you liked it, I hope you let me know down below. It's really hard as a young creator, so any amount you let me know helps. And honestly, MiHoYo, I'm sick of it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you want to see more content like this, and I hope you subscribe and check me out next time.